Hello and welcome to the 741 channel. Thank you for stopping by. Today we're going to take a look at replacing the fan in this Pyramid PS-36KX power supply. So I've already done some work to this power supply and I've made a video documenting that work. And if you haven't seen it already, you can look down in the description below. There'll be a link to it down there, or you can click the card that'll appear above. So in the previous video, I documented the repairs that I did, which were pretty much replacing the main regulator chip, the pass transistors, and the filter capacitors in this power supply. So at this point, it now seems to work okay. It produces the correct amount of voltage, and it seems to be able to provide enough current to run an amateur radio or something like that. Now, having said that, when I was working on it previously, I did discover that the fan in here was shot. It no longer spins. So I figured since I had it on the bench here, we might as well finish it off and put a new fan in. So here's a closer look at the power supply and where the fan mounts in. Now you may be able to tell that I've actually already removed it. It's just kind of placed in here at the moment. But basically it just connects in with two screws to these mounting ears that are down here. And there are two wires that I've already unsoldered and removed. And those connect to the filter board, which is back here. You guys probably can't see it behind all this mess of wires. But anyway, this fan is shot. The bearings inside are almost seized up. It's very hard to turn it, and you may be able to hear as I spin it, it kind of squeaks. So it's a little hard to tell from this old label here, but this is a 24-volt fan, and we're going to replace it with a new one. So here's a look at the new fan that I sourced from Amazon. Now you can see here that it says that it's a Sunon fan. I'm not really sure that it is. It's more than likely a Chinese knockoff, but either way, it'll probably work okay in here for a while. So you can see as supplied, there's a piece of tape down here kind of holding the leads around the fan so they don't flop around. The other thing that I noticed it's doing is it's holding the fan blades from spinning. So we're going to want to remove that and get it out of the way. And as you can see, the fan seems to spin okay and it's not making any noise. And here's another look at the specs on the fan again, just in case you missed them before. You can see that it's a 24-volt DC fan, 1.8 watts. So you can see on top of the fan there are a couple of arrows. This one here indicates the rotation direction, and this one here indicates the airflow direction. So when I mount this back in the power supply, I'm going to mount it so it's sucking the air out of the power supply and not blowing it in. And the reason I like to do it that way is so that it doesn't suck dirt and debris from its environment into the power supply. Hopefully you guys can see this and it's focusing okay. So here's a close-up look at how the fan mounts into the power supply. You can see that the back ear of the fan is on the outside edge of the mounting tab that's in the chassis of the power supply. And then basically we're just going to put the two screws through, one on either side, and screw it down in place. As you can see in the overhead shot here, the screws are a little hard to access because of the rectifiers and the filter capacitor board. So I'm going to use this long screwdriver and come from the opposite side of the power supply and just try and get this screw through around all these wires. So the second screw here is a little tougher to get in place because the tabs of the rectifier are just in the way of lining up the screwdriver. So I'm trying to get the screw in and get it started by hand first, and then we should be able to get the screwdriver in to tighten it up the rest of the way. So next up I'm going to use a small zip tie and zip tie these wires to the top corner of the fan. That'll help keep the wires from flopping around, and it actually provides some stability for the fan as well. And this is pretty much how it was from the factory. Before I took this out there was a zip tie here also, so we're just kind of putting it back the way the factory had it. So I've removed the screws that hold this filter board on. Now I can just kind of get this up and tip it over. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to solder the leads from the fan onto the back of the filter board. So here's a close-up look at the back of the filter board. You may be able to see that the traces of this board are marked with negative symbols, and let's see, there's a positive symbol down here on this trace. So basically what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to connect the red wire to one of the points on the positive trace and the black wire to one of the negative points. Now before I took this apart, I noted that the factory fan was mounted here and here, so I think we'll just try and put the new one back that same way. So I've put a little flux on here, and I'm just going to reflow this first one here because I think there's a piece of the old wire in it. So we'll try and get that out of there. Okay, so I think that's cleaned up well enough. So we're going to bring in the negative wire first, and you may be able to see in the camera that there's a negative symbol next to this pin. So we're going to put this one right here. Now this wire is already pre-tinned, which makes things a little easier. Okay, so I think we're good on the negative side. Let's repeat the process on the positive side. Okay, and there's a look at the wires soldered in place. Now, this may not meet IPC soldering standards, but it ought to do the job. Now I'm going to put the screws back in that hold the filter board in place. And I don't want to tighten these up too much because the standoffs are just plastic, and I could very easily strip out those threads. So we're just going to snug those up. So the filter board is back in place, and you can see the wire routing here is okay. I probably could have done a better job with that. I probably could have snuck those wires under this bundle of blue and yellow wires, and then I also could have come on this side of this black wire. It's just a little bit stretched here. It's not really an issue. There's no real strain on the wire, but I think it would have just been a neater routing to do it that way. But this ought to work for this application, so let's fire it up and see if the fan works. I've got the power supply plugged in, so let's turn it on and see if the fan starts spinning. Okay, so as you can see, it looks like the fan is now working as it should. So it feels like there's plenty of air coming out of here, so I think we're good to go. That's going to wrap up fan replacement on this Pyramid PS-36KX power supply. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to leave a comment or subscribe, feel free to do that as well. And if you'd like to support my channel in another way, please consider visiting my Amazon store, which you'll find linked in the description below. Thanks for watching.